Welcome back to the Piping Pastor. Well, it's just another one of those live chat videos I'm doing, so no introductory slide, just me talking to you. For this video today, I'm smoking my favorite pipe, and I've spoken about this one before. Came out of a tobacco shop in Baltimore that sadly closed. But this was designed by the pipe maker that they had employed there for their own shop. So it's a really beautiful pipe. I'll probably bring this will be one of the ones I bring to Muletown. So those of you who I'll see in Muletown, you get to see this one close up because it's really interesting. I think the way that they this pipe was finished. And in it, smoking some haunted bookshop. I was reading in the book I'm going through right now, Boswell's Life of Johnson. Great book, really large book, about 1,400 pages, and it's an interesting book. Samuel Johnson, of course, one of the greatest writers of the English language early on, wrote the first English dictionary, wrote tons of prose, and had a couple of weekly periodicals that he wrote and edited. Very famous English writer in his time, and well, since then, obviously, as well. But after he died, a few people took it upon themselves to write his biography. And when Boswell saw some of these, he was like, wait a minute, I knew Samuel Johnson better than any of these people. I should be the one writing it. And so I think in an effort to demonstrate both the life of Johnson and also his connection to Johnson, he includes like everything. A ton of Johnson's letters. He records conversations they had in the club they were in and all kinds of things. So quite a bit in here. In terms of opinion between the two men, between Boswell and Johnson, they agreed on quite a bit. Boswell was a huge fan of Johnson. It was a bit of hero worship. And one of the areas they disagreed on was, or two of the areas, I guess, was slavery and Americans, because Johnson lived through the time of our War of Independence. And Johnson had a very negative view of Americans. This pipe's nearly gone out. Been smoking for a while before I decided to record this video. Nearly out of tobacco. In any case, he viewed them, us Americans, as, like basically traitors to the crown. He was very much a royalist, and so he viewed our splitting off and gaining independence as a very negative thing, to say the least. And he also did not agree with slavery in any form. So Boswell, on the other side, had sympathy for the Americans, had sympathy for the independence, and also for the institution of slavery, because Boswell thought it was a necessary economic prop, I guess. And his primary support to the Americans was their need for representation in taxation. So for Boswell, his opinion was primarily based on economics, and Johnson was more about morals and ethics. So kind of an odd difference there, but one worth thinking about. If you ever have you ever had to read this book? But there are letters going back and forth between the two of them in the late 1700s, just after we gained independence. So, but I was reading through one of their conversations here, and this struck me as rather appropriate to the discussion of freedom that's been permeating the YTPC recently. And of course, I talked about this in reference to 13 Pipes video, and what freedom means here on Earth, and so on and so forth. But I came across this, and I was like, this really fits. So I thought I'd share this with you. This is Johnson speaking, and he says, Um, we are all agreed as to our own liberty. We would have as much of it as we can get, but we are not agreed as to the liberty of others. For in proportion as we take, others must lose. I believe we hardly wish that the mob should have liberty to govern us. The idea that we should think about our liberty in relation to other people's liberty, their freedoms. And as I was thinking about this, what came to mind was a couple of videos that Polypore Piper has done. If you've never seen any of her videos, you should definitely give her a sub. She primarily does lunting, so she walks through the woods and things like that, has various discussions of pipes and tobaccos and so forth, and very interesting. And in a couple of her videos, as she's going through the woods, she has come across campsites where people have left their rubbish everywhere around in the woods. They find a campsite and they leave their trash there. And in one video, she's cleaning it all up and so on and so forth. And um, it kind of made me think of that as well. It's like those people who went to that campsite were essentially exercising their own personal liberty. They were exercising their own freedom just to go out and do as they will. But as a result, their exercising of liberty and freedom in an irresponsible manner has now infringed upon the liberty and freedom of others to enjoy the natural beauty of that landscape, or at the very least go and camp in that same spot that's all covered in rubbish now. And so we have an example of people exercising their freedom and personal liberty without responsibility and without thought given to others. The Bible tells us in Romans that we are all different limbs of the same body, but we all belong to each other. So when we have discussions of freedom and of personal liberty, of course, we're all like, yes, I want to be free. I don't want to be constricted by laws and governance that infringe upon my personal liberty. And that's enshrined, of course, for those of us in the Americas. It's enshrined in our Constitution, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we can't just think of freedom as just a hard-charging freedom, completely independent thing, because we do live with other people. We do live in community. We were not created to live independently completely, right? We weren't all meant to just live in a cave by ourselves. Which means that we need to consider the personal liberties and freedoms of others. And it can be a difficult thing. It's easy in the echo chamber when we all happen to agree on the same stuff, right? For those of us in the Christian community, although we have many different flavors, we largely agree on a lot of the same points. And when we talk about religious freedom, religious liberty, we're typically talking about religious liberty and freedom from our own perspective. But it's worth taking a pause to think about the fact that other people's liberty and personal freedoms are important to them too. So we shouldn't just be singularly concerned about our own liberty and our own freedom, because we are all different parts of the same body, as it says in Romans. Because as we gain personal liberties, we might infringe upon the liberties of others. So while we should absolutely pursue personal freedom and liberty, as we are granted, let's say, in America through our Constitution, and in large part in the United Kingdom and in other areas and so on and so forth, personal liberty is also important there as well. We should also take a moment to think about the personal liberty and freedoms of others. Because it's not just a singular thing. There's other people out there too. So, personal liberty, personal responsibility, and thinking of others. Freedom is a complex thing. It's not just a gimme, and it's not just to do what you feel like you want to do. It's a responsibility that we're blessed with. Well, that is it for this time. So I hope you have a lovely week, as always. Happy reading.